This is the Criterion Creeps podcast, and tonight we're talking about Spartacus from 1960, directed by that guy Stanley Kubrick. You might have heard of him. The tagline for this film: "They trained him to kill for their pleasure, but they trained him a little too well." And the synopsis from Letterboxd: the rebellious Thracian Spartacus, born and raised a slave, is sold to gladiator trainer Batiatus? That was always going to be the one that throws me off, because it's like
that one was
that one.
Ooh, Batiatus?
Yeah, Batiatus.
What, you didn't fucking learn Greek and Latin? What are you, a nerd?
Yeah, I'm not as smart as William Wallace. After weeks of being trained to kill for the arena, Spartacus turns on his owners and leads the other slaves in rebellion. I like that it's just a few weeks. As the rebels move from town to town, their numbers swell as escaped slaves join their ranks. Under the leadership of Spartacus, they make their way to southern Italy, where they will cross the sea and return to their homes. So, Spartacus. This is probably the first time I ever watched this was the Criterion copy of this that my friend Corey bought. It's got that big, bright red striking cover. That's still quite nice. One of their better, I think, covers that they've made for any of their releases. And yeah, I mean, I like this movie. It's like very typical kind of like of the era epic. And so I'd seen it at least twice, I guess. The second time I watched it was when I was like probably on a Stanley Kubrick kick, and I was like, oh, it's been years since I watched it. So I watched it again, and again, it's just a movie that I'm like, yeah, it's a good movie. I mean, I just don't love it. And I never really thought about why I didn't love it, anything like that. So that's kind of like what this viewing for me was. Just be like, okay, let's try this movie again. Let's see what this is all about. So big thing with this movie, I guess its reputation is this is Stanley Kubrick's work for hire movie. Yeah. He was never attached to it. There's kind of like a backstory to it. Are you familiar with it at all?
A little bit. I just know that like he got pulled in afterwards. Wasn't there some Criterion alums in the mix?
Well, not
or competing movies or something.
So the way it all goes. So first of all, Kubrick made Paths of Glory with Kirk Douglas. That movie didn't do great, even though it's like a masterpiece. And it holds up so well. It looks like it could have been shot a week ago, and we'll talk about it one day.
One day.
The movie didn't do great, so then Stanley Kubrick was trying to figure out what's he going to do next. One of those movies was making a Western with Marlon Brando. And that just was never going to play out. Marlon Brando wanted him, but it just didn't see eye to eye on aspects. And that movie became One-Eyed Jacks, which Marlon Brando went on to direct, which is a future Criterion movie. And I watched it not that long ago, and the movie's pretty interesting.
Interesting.
I think it's pretty. I don't know. I'm.
Is it good or is it bad?
It's good. I like it.
Okay.
But I like those westerns. So, so he was kind of languishing. He wanted to make Lolita.
Right.
And he was trying to get financing for it, and it wasn't happening. It was kind of like in this weird transition period. And out of nowhere, Kirk Douglas gives him a phone call, and he wants him to direct Spartacus. So the story there is, from what I recall. So Kirk Douglas, after making Paths of Glory, he went on to make the movie The Vikings, this big kind of swashbuckling movie about Vikings, and it was with Richard Fleischer, and it wasn't exactly what he wanted it to be. He wanted more creative control. The other strike against it for him wanting to make Spartacus is Kirk Douglas wanted to be Ben-Hur. He which is like, when you think about it, it's like when I think of Spartacus, Ben-Hur comes straight to mind. Like, they're very similar. Like they're not like taking place at the same time, but they're both Roman epics about good guys, bad guys, all that stuff. And so he kind of was like, I'm going to do this Spartacus movie. And his little studio, his little production company, he was employing a guy named Dalton Trumbo, who they've made a movie about. They've made documentaries about him with that Bryan Cranston, because he was a fucking liberal commie, giving the Russians all our secrets, obviously. And HUAC was pursuing them. Fuck, it's just it's such an absurd period of time.
Is that like accurate, or is that just conspiracy?
Oh theory? No, this is in the public. This like no. So Donald Trumbo was just like whatever. He was like a fucking.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he was Jewish, but like a lot of these like leftist Jewish screenwriters living in Hollywood,
Yeah.
they probably had like whatever socialist leanings and were probably part of the Communist Party, but like an American Communist Party, which is like not quite the same as being a Russian communist or like a Stalinist or a Leninist even. I don't know. Anyway,
Is that
there's like there's the Hollywood 10 that like they were like this like list of people who were blacklisted. Like you were like studios did not want to like hire these people because if you did, you were a communist too. And this was a way of like saying, hey, like it was a ridiculous period of time. But
is that what Hail Caesar's supposed to be about?
Yes, that is exactly what Hail Caesar's supposed to be about. That really like not
that really bad movie.
That bad Coen Brothers movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, so that's kind of what that was about. So Dalton Trumbo, and that's why like that Trumbo movie that came out with Bryan Cranston was like, oh, Hollywood backpatting, and no one really ultimately cared. But so a lot of these guys, they were writing under like pseudonyms, and they were like, or they were working at these smaller production places. Like essentially, I mean, they were kind of getting taken advantage of because they couldn't charge like regular rates, so they'd get paid less to get work, but at the same time, they were at least getting fed. So like, because Kirk Douglas, obviously, he would have thought this was bullshit, and you could say Spartacus was like it was a big turning point actually in like turning the tide against this like idiotic mentality of like essentially it's like oppression from like Hollywood and the government.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the political aspect of this movie going in. So yeah, Kirk Douglas, he was first got director Anthony Mann, who is a man of westerns, and he's made like some amazing westerns with Jimmy Stewart and some other really good movies. Very good director, but I guess that for some reason Kirk Douglas was working with Anthony Mann. They shot like the very beginning stuff, like all the stuff in the slave mines at the very very top of the movie. That was him, and then he just thought that Anthony Mann was not going to let him be Kirk Douglas, and so he fired the director off the movie that his own production company was doing, and he's like, let's get that Stanley Kubrick guy. He knows what he's doing. That Paths of Glory experience was easy, and I think I can play this guy. I can make him do what I want him to do. So Stanley Kubrick was brought in to like just make this movie, and part of it was that, hey, if I do this movie, I'm going to get paid like, I think it was like quite a lot of money. Like I think I read in this Taschen book, Stanley Kubrick, The Complete Films, that he got like $150,000, which seems kind of ridiculously high. But they also bought the rights for Lolita and would let him go and direct that. So there's like all this types of deals.
Baggage deal.
At the time, I think like overall, like Kubrick kind of like does not speak highly of this movie while he was still alive. Like this was the movie he kind of wrote off saying, it has nothing to do with anything I'm interested in. And like when you watch it, there really isn't like anything. There's a few things that you could be like, oh, that's a Kubrick scene, or that feels like something in line with the other stuff he makes. But on the whole, it pretty well is a Hollywood epic, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just like when you're talking about like this like director who's influenced so much, and he's like the kind of this like picture perfect image of like an auteur in his films and stuff like that. Spartacus doesn't get brought up in the conversation a lot because it's not the type of movies that people who are like into Kubrick really like to watch.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, that's kind of the info dump on Spartacus for stuff that I guess is kind of relevant. But so yeah, my thoughts on this movie is, the first like hour and a half or so I think are really good. I enjoy them quite a bit. Most of it's just like, it's all the Gladiator school stuff. That's all fantastic. And then you get the big, like the jailbreak. All that's really good.
Yep.
And then it kind of like hits the military campaign part with Spartacus raising his army town by town, and it's done in sort of this like offhand sort of way where he's just going to these towns and like, you don't see the battles, you just see him like, he was victorious, and a bunch of extras are standing around, and then they're doing bad things to like citizens, or not citizens but like politicians and stuff like that, and like rich people and like the influencers, and they're all liberated. How do you like it? How do you like to be forced to fight another man? And that's just like fine. And there's like a love story kind of aspect in there, just because that's what these movies kind of have in there. And yeah, I mean, then you get the big battle, and the big battle has like a lot of potential. It's like got some pretty ridiculously dangerous scenes in there where I'm like, holy smokes. But we'll talk about that. And then like it's basically the first hour is really good, and like the last half hour is really good.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of stuff where just like this movie is so interchangeable with like every type of movie like this, and there's just like, depending on how, like, there's like moments that are good, but there's a lot where you're just like, oh, it's another scene of Kirk Douglas smiling and posing by a lake or like chatting away with somebody. Tony, it's So there's like those are the things in the movie that like keep it from being like a banger for me. But I don't know. On the whole, I mean, I still like enjoy this movie. I will probably at some point watch it again, type of thing. It's a good little example of epics. I guess like if I was comparing it to Ben-Hur, which I just watched like a month or so ago, I think it's like on the whole a better movie, but nothing in it lives up to that chariot race in Ben-Hur, because that's like one of the best things I've ever seen, like in an action sort of way. It's like a masterpiece of filmmaking, and nothing in this is as good as that. But on the whole, this movie is better. But they're both, I mean, they both have their merits or whatever. But I think like the scene to scene moments, like the dialogue in this movie is like really great. There's some amazing performances that we'll talk about. Like it's like great. My boy here, whose name I can't pronounce his character's name, of Batiatis. Peter Ustinov. That guy is just fucking so good in this. But anyway, those are my broad strokes. RJ, have you seen Spartacus before, and what did you think?
First off, I want to go on a tangent here. How old would Kirk Douglas have been if he was still alive?
Well, RJ, he is still alive at the time of this recording. As we discussed last week, when I realized that we're doing Spartacus this week, our podcast has this tendency of killing people.
We didn't even bring that up.
And well, so not in the body. So one of the actresses from Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie, she just died like the other day, and that's just like one person. And like the one
we got Bill Paxton, we got Senjun Suzuki.
Yes.
We're up to like 7, I think now. I can't remember the others either, but
the Creeps body count.
Yeah, like we had a lot. The big one was Senjun Suzuki or whatever.
Yes.
That dude, because it was like a week after we talked about it, he died. Bill Paxton died like a week after. The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie lady, we only talked about that like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, like a month or so ago. Yeah.
Within this month.
Kirk Douglas, alive and well right now, is 101 years old. I'm pulling that he's going to make it to 105, just so he matches that Criterion spine number. Give him another 4. Give him another 4 years. Come on.
That's gross, Jared. That's gross.
Maybe that's all. Maybe that's all that's keeping him going.
I bring it up because it wasn't all recorded, but I cannot believe that this guy is still alive. I can't believe it. And I'm not trying to be mean or like funny. It's just we were talking about this, and I honestly didn't believe he was still alive. I was like, there's no fucking way he's alive. The dude was born in like 1915. Like, that guy's dead. Unbelievable. Anyways, I just had to get that off my chest to start off with. I've seen Spartacus, man. Who hasn't seen that Spartacus? This is one of I should file this under grandparents movies because, as I've mentioned many times, my grandparents had like 6 movies that we watched a lot, like Spartacus, The Ghost in the Darkness, Turner and Hooch, Operation Dumbo Drop, just some other ones.
You got to make a letterboxd list.
Yeah, that's what I got to do. But because we always talk about this, but this was one of those ones. This and like Ben-Hur and 10 Commandments of the like.
Double tapers,
yeah. The double box VHS, biblical epics.
EP.
So this one isn't necessarily a biblical epic, but it fits in with the genre.
It's got that crucifixion.
It does. It has a crucifixion. You feel bad. There's babies being killed. So it fits right in with the Bible. No, this was one that was routinely being played at my grandparents' house. So I I saw it a lot. And on top, well, not a lot, but like as a little kid, it was one of those movies that was playing in the background a lot. On top of that, I do believe I saw this in school one time. So around the Easter time in the Catholic schools, they show you the Ten Commandments. They show you Ben-Hur. They show you that Prince of Egypt. They show you all that stuff. And I think one year, I think the teacher got a little lazy and was like, here's Spartacus. He was like, does this have anything to do with Easter? And he's like, whatever, just watch Spartacus. It all works. So I think I even watched this in school, like in maybe, I don't know, like grade 8, grade 9 maybe. So I've seen Spartacus a few times.
Okay.
But it's never as an adult, since I've been keeping track of things.
Okay.
So this was the first time in a long time. The routine for what we always talk about is within 5 to 15 years, I haven't seen this. But the better part of like 10 to 15 years, I think. Hold up. I got to stop. My cat is in the closet. I got to take it out. I'll be right back. I'll lock my door.
Oh, my God.
Hey, what are you doing? Get out of here. What are you doing? Oh, my gosh. Get out of here.
I am not editing this out.
Hello?
Hi.
Hello, are you there? Okay, I closed my door. She won't come in this time.
We're still here.
She opened the closet. Does your cat open closets?
No.
How does she do that? Is her fucking weird spaghetti arms squiggling under there? And whew. Okay. Yeah, so I've seen Spartacus quite a few times, but definitely not within the last like 15 years. An honest 15, not an exaggerated 15.
Okay.
So this is first in a long time. And I think the reason I was reluctant was because I think like you, a while ago, I was like, man, I got to rewatch all these Kubrick films now that I'm this big time movie buff, that I'm this well-learned film student.
A film podcaster.
A film podcaster. Yeah, it's like I better watch all those Kubricks again. And I actually have this really nice like Blu-ray set of most of Big Stan's movies. Not all of them, but most of them. And Spartacus is the first one. And when I was rewatching all the Kubricks a couple years ago, I didn't rewatch Spartacus because I was like, I've seen it a bunch of times. I don't even need to talk about it. But I don't really know why I did that. But I think it's kind of like what you said. It is the least Kubrick movie, I guess, because it's his work for hire. But I mean, on the whole, there isn't those like shining elements where you're like, oh yeah, that's a Kubrick thing right there. But I agree with you. I think it's a really good movie. Yeah. I think it's really well made. It's really entertaining. This thing's like, what, like over 3 hours long?
Yeah.
And I popped this son of a bitch on Sunday morning, which is like I've said many times, like Westerns, anything pre-1950 or like anything like that, like old man movies, biblical epics, all that shit, it's best watched like Sunday afternoon. Mm-hmm. So I popped this son of a bitch on at like, I think 10 a.m. and I think I finished watching at like 3 p.m. So somehow it took me like 5 hours, even though it's only 3.
Well, you're probably taking cats out of closets all day.
Yeah, I was stopping, checking the cats. You know, you get some lunch, you go sit on the toilet. But it took me a long time to watch. But that said, it didn't really feel like that long. I was surprised at how well this movie kind of flowed for me, I guess is the word I'm going to use. That heavy flow, you know. So I was surprised at how well it just kind of. I was just watching it. Like, yeah, there were a couple times where my attention kind of waned a little bit, and I would look at the ceiling and not quite like quiet on, but you know, like I check my phone and stuff. But then I just pop right back in, and it was comfortable to me, Jarrett. This is like a comfort food movie to me. You can put it on and you can like go about your day, and you just know that it's kind of there and you're watching. But no, it's really well made, and I think it's one of those stories that I think is universally relatable because we've all been slaves. We've all been like, in the gladiatory games.
Gotta jump in here. So there's this, like one of the first lines. So there's like, so the movie begins and lays down the floor plan of this movie. If it's like, it's the voiceover narration that only really shows up at the beginning of the movie, and I don't know if you hear it again. Maybe at the very end, but I think that's it. and you get the whole recap of Spartacus's life up to this point. You don't have to have like things with like King Arthur and going to brothels and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh yeah, he's a slave. He's all dirty and bearded, and he's in Libya, and he's a good dude, this Spartacus. But there's this line of, oh, like, this is 2,000 years before slavery would die. And I just made the note, or change, because aren't we all just slaves to something else, man?
And then you wrote deep beside it, and you sent off your tweet.
In caps.
Yeah, deep, bruh. Yeah, but even though you're a nerd and all that, it's like I was saying, like, I don't know why I think movies like these are relatable, because it's like, well, yeah, no one of not us, we're not slaves, we're not gladiators, but there's something like relatable or something that you cheer for with like the underdog story, I guess. This is a hot take. No one has ever come across why underdogs are you root for them. So I think I'm fresh to the game here, but no, I don't know. It's like one of those stories where you see this like hot young dude with this like super butt chin and this really stern face and the Johnny Unitas haircut. He's just
the top knot.
Yeah, that top knot. You can set your watch to it, and you're like, I'm rooting for you, man. You're trying your best. You're doing the right thing. You're experiencing hardships. You're okay. So there's something about it that, even though it's a storyline that we see all the time and you're very familiar with, it's comforting and it's entertaining at the same time. And you're like, yeah, I'm into this. It's like, I want this guy to do well, and I want to be with him while he's doing it.
Aww.
So I'm not getting emotional, all right? I'm just saying, like,
you're like Tony Curtis.
I'm like Tony Curtis, yeah. No, I'm just saying, I've seen this movie a bunch of times, and the story and like the idea of this character kind of like uprising against whatever and breaking through, it's not new. But in this, like, I don't know what, 90-year-old movie with this 101-year-old man, it's somehow still like fresh and entertaining, and you're like, yeah, man, this is really good, because it's really well made. Like, Kubrick's a good dude, even when it's a movie that he had like no input on. He's like, all right, let's make a real movie. We'll make it good.
There's some story too of him like showing up on set and like saying, there's not enough light. And like, this is like after like the cinematographer had like spent all this time setting up a scene, and like that's how Kubrick rolled, man. And I guess I think the guy like kicked a light over, and he's like, is that better? And Kubrick's like, no, there's too much light. Just fucking no sold it. And it's like, yep, that sounds pretty legit. After watching that Shining making of, where he's just like, I'm here to get this job done. It's gonna look right, or fuck it. So
I think my favorite story about that was one I heard where he was like still editing The Shining like a year after it was released. Like, it was already out in theaters, and he was like still editing it. It's like, that's a man. That's a fucking filmmaker, man.
That's a weirdo.
It's a weird dude, yeah. Well, but he was cool. He was right.
Man, I wanted to see his Napoleon so bad. He spent like, I can't remember, 27 years researching a Napoleon movie that like never really happened. And then he kind of made Barry Lyndon, which is essentially what his Napoleon movie would have been. But yeah, that would have been something else. Anyway, continue.
I think Spartacus is cool. Is my major point. I like the sword and sandal epic. Yeah, that's my Catholic school roots shining through here. Like I was saying, man, 10 Commandments just got drilled into you there. So it was like, that's a movie especially that it's like, fuck yeah, that movie is like comfort food. Like,
I'm trying really hard to watch that this weekend, that 10 Commandments, because it's been years since I've seen that on Easter weekend, and that is because that is actually an ABC favorite for a long time. And now it's like, I'm like, it's been a while since I watched that thing. I missed my Vincent Price and my Chuck Heston and my Yul Brynner. And
exactly.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yul Brynner was trying to make a Spartacus movie at the same time.
It's, you know what's weird? There was another movie in the Criterion Collection where I was like, just by chance, I just looked up the movie, and there was a thing in there was like Yul Brynner was like making a companion film or a rival film at the same time.
Yeah.
And then he popped up in those Orphic trilogy movies, and like Yul Brynner's around the Criterion Collection a lot.
Magnificent
Surprisingly
Seven.
so. Yeah, Magnificent Seven.
He's just hovering on the edge.
He's just always on the edge, yeah.
It's
But,
pretty creepy.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like, I think Spartacus is actually a really well-made movie, and it's
of course.
long. Yeah, of course.
Long, yeah.
It's long, but don't start it like when you have something to do later. Wait until a fucking Sunday morning when you got nothing to do all day. Throw that son of a bitch on and just like watch a good movie. But I don't know. It's comforting to me, and it's very nostalgic, I guess. It's something that is really well known, like well treaded area for me. But I don't know, like even watching it now, there were things that I really liked about it, and it was mostly like some of the language that they used I thought was really funny, where they were talking, and it's like when he goes to the Gladiator camp and he's like, "You will be oiled, you will be like haircut, you will be massaged," and I thought that was really funny. There was that fat guy sweating, and he's like, "Fan his magnitude." He sweats. I thought that was good. I loved how all the guys were wearing like JanSport sweaters, like just with the sleeves cut off. Like it was clearly like sweatshirts that were maybe bought at a store. Probably not, but that's what it looked like. Yeah. I don't know. Kirk Douglas's intense fucking face is so funny in this movie sometimes. Like when the people come to the Gladiator camp, and they're like, show us your gladiators. We want to pick like some good ones to fight. And he's like trying to peddle off like the little dudes. He's like, oh, that one there is really good. It's like a really little dude, because he doesn't want to give away his best ones. They're like, no. They're like, what about that guy? He looks good. And it goes to Kirk Douglas's face, and it's so fucking intense. It's just burning through the screen. Mm-hmm. I thought that was really awesome. I liked some of the training things they do, like when he's training his outlaws or his band of like rebellion dudes. There's like big rocks swinging on ropes. I think that's like the most overlooked but also best training scenario is gigantic swinging rocks. It's a common thing, but it's nice.
Yeah.
I really like the steam bathroom, because there's scenes where there's like really fat dudes just sleeping on piles of towels, and it's like, yeah, I would do that too. And what else we got here? I got a few other things, but my last note was fire logs. Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Because that last battle is pretty good. Those fire logs.
Not enough, though. Not enough.
But there is a sweet de-limbing where he cuts off that guy's leg or something, or his arm. That seems pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Anyways.
So, yeah, I'll kind of start at the top here with a couple of my notes. Swooping camera, which I guess is like actually Anthony Mann's contribution, because there's like this movie, like the shots and stuff like that, like they're just like, whoa, this movie looks so good. Like I would say, like from that aspect, this movie just like looks a lot better than Ben-Hur does, other than that chariot scene. So I was curious. It's like, oh yeah, so this movie's budget, I think it was like $1.6 million. It ballooned to $12 million. And Kubrick's previous movie, Paths of Glory, cost like not even $1 million to make. And this is like $1959, $1960. So inflation is a bitch. So those numbers are a lot bigger. But yeah, it's like this movie was like twice the scale that he was used to working with. And I mean, I don't know how much that 2001 cost, but
Not enough.
So that was my next note there. Top knots. Peter Ustinov. He is so awesome and funny in this movie. I love his like kind of like, he's like a slave trader, but he's like like so like inept. Batiatus. He is Batiatus. Let's go with that. I don't know. He the writing for him is great, and then like later on you get him and Charles Laughton hanging out together. Future director of Night of the Hunter, or actually this is after he's already directed that. They're great. We had that wonderful exchange talking about corpulence.
Corpulent cabbage.
And I quote, "You and I have a tendency toward corpulence. Corpulence makes a man reasonable, pleasant, and phlegmatic. Have you noticed the nastiest of tyrants are invariably thin?" So good. Who can write that?
It's I know isn't it's like I said, the language, just the dialogue, it's awesome.
Yeah. So I guess like all these directors, these young guys, these like Laurence Olivier's unruly lot trying to be subtle against like for whatever reason, fucking Kirk Douglas is like, no, you can't rein me in. You gotta let me be me, which is fine. Like he can be the big hero and let the British actors all be British and like plotty and stuff like that. It works. It works wonderfully. But yeah, you get to the Gladiator school. You get the montage of like devices of doom. And I'm like, is this almost like I wonder how close this is to what a Gladiator school was like back in the day. I really like the painting demo of death, where we're getting the big paintbrushes to demonstrate how to kill a man quickly, slowly, or just to cripple them. I thought that's quite well done. And then we get the selection process, which is like the thing you were referencing with the short guy trying to push him on these people who've just won by Crassus, and that is like that seems like excellent. Just how cold and indifferent the wives are, and they're just like picking these people, and we even get a nice black cock joke thrown in there, because even back in black cock, large black cock, RJ. It's in there.
You gotta edit this. You gotta edit this thing out, man.
It's in the movie. Okay, so we get the selection. We get Kirk Douglas. He's going to be in that battle. He might have to kill his buddy, but he doesn't actually have to get to that point. But just like the intelligence of the filmmaking, where they decide, let's have it where we get Kirk Douglas and his Ethiopian friend sitting in the box waiting to go out and get killed themselves, and all you hear is the off-camera fighting, and you get to see Kirk Douglas like looking through the planks of the wood, and you can see like glimmers of like the action going on, and just like them intently sitting waiting for their turn, and it's just so brutal. It's like, fuck, this is so good. Like this is so far ahead of like so much going on in like Hollywood movies at this time, to like nail a scene like this, where it's like, yeah, one of these guys is going to die, and they just have to hang out with one another till that happens. That's really fucked up. It's like, if you think about like an execution where it's like one man waiting to die on death row for like years, it's like that's one thing, because you can get kind of disconnected. But this is like a scenario where it's like, well, you get a chance to like live again, but then you might just die the next day or the next day after that. If you get injured, I mean, you're going to probably get infected and die anyway. So what a life.
You might,
unless you get unless you have a helpful friend that helps you take care of that with some maggots.
We'll get there.
So Chanel kind of at this point had like walked in and became really interested in the movie based on that selection scene. She was like, well, this movie's like way more interesting than I thought. And then she was kind of like, man, these costumes. And then she's like, this kind of looks like Star Trek. And I went, yeah, I get that. It does look like Star Trek. Filmmaking technique has changed a lot. Like if you take the story of like a contemporary movie and you place it in the 60s, there's really no way of getting around this sort of like set design and production value, like the way things just look. Whereas now everything looks the same, the way that everything looked the same in the 60s. It's just things evolve just someone innovates and then everybody rips it off.
Go on.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it when we get to those big those movies.
We'll get there.
So yeah, just the scene where you get the big fuck you to the Roman hoi poi, to the Richies and the trident scene. That Chanel's like, fuck, I just want a movie about this guy. This guy's, it's so amazing. It's so heroic. That's like one of the best things I've ever seen. She like totally loved that.
Did she see the sequel? That is a movie about the Trident Man that we watched that we'll get to later.
We'll get there.
Did Chanel watch that? Because that's the sequel she was asking for.
No, she found other things to do.
Nice.
Oh yeah, and then of course, like he gets hung up as a warning to your trifling slave fighters. I couldn't help but think of Morgan Freeman's Fate and Unforgiven. It's like, oh, it's also a black man being just shown out. Here's your body. He's going to be there till he rots. That's great. Then we get some.
You heard it here first. Jarrett said that's great.
That's great. We get the rebellion, and people get fucked up. Yeah, I don't know. And then this is a part again, like
and then it
where
goes to the
movie
political drama.
It gets into the Roman politics. We get the chatter. We get the Senate. All that stuff that is so much better done in the HBO show Rome. Again, another example of like modern filmmaking, just like capturing scenes and getting into scenes a little bit better. I think than these movies try to do. They could have been done better then too, and they were, but in these broad stroke epics, they're kind of just like, here's the scenes to set the stage for later on, but they're not done with like the greatest of care. But the one scene though of like making like the Romans fighting themselves, like the old fat guys chasing each other around with swords, and they're being like, I found that really disturbing actually. Like it's a really fucked up scene. It's like, it's one thing to be like, I don't know why that is, but it's just like grabbing people and it's like, oh, now you got to do it and turning the tables. How does it feel to prove a point? It's like, man, that scene now, like if you shot that now, it would be like even more like obviously disturbing, whereas in this, because it looks like Star Trek, it's like kind of like, they got what they got coming to them. But it's like in this, you're like, maybe that's actually more off-putting, and it's just like nothing special.
I don't know. Is it? I was listening. Yeah. I'm not kidding. There was you like paused for a second, and I was gonna say something, and then I was like, wait a minute. And now here we are.
So RJ, when you were watching this on tape in school and stuff like that, was the oysters and snails scene in the copy you watched?
No, I've never seen that before actually. So, and I don't know if it's that like intentionally, but like it's like I said, at my grandparents', I was just a little kid running around, so there were so many scenes that like you knew, I guess, like but no, I didn't remember that.
So the history of that scene was when the movie got the initial cut got released, and like wherever the Legion of Decency got to watch it because that's how Hollywood worked, and they went nuh-uh, and so that scene got cut. And so the footage remained in the vaults until 1991 when there was like the big restoration done by the guy who did Lawrence of Arabia's restoration around that same time. And so that scene came along, but the problem was that they had the film, but they didn't have the audio, and Laurence Olivier was dead. So they had to like get Tony Curtis re-recorded his lines, and I think they got like a Laurence Olivier sound-alike. And I don't know, that scene is so funny to me because it's like it doesn't belong in some weird ways. Like if it's not there, it feels normal, but because it's there, and maybe it's because like the way that they had to try to like recreate it with the new music over top of it, and there's this, it just doesn't feel quite right in the way that's set. Like that music is so funny. It's that scene.
I did not remember that because clearly I had never seen it.
No,
and I was watching it and I was like, "What is this?" I was like, "This is a weird scene in here." Not like that it didn't fit. I was just like, I don't remember this at all.
Yeah,
this has weird dialogue. This is a weird scene.
It is. It is a really. It's very Kubricky too, because it's shot this weird.
I see what you did there.
It seems like it could be in like a Clockwork Orange or something like that, because like the way the music is and the weird high angle of it all, and just like strange stylized dialogue compared to everything else in the movie, where everything's very considered and spoken out loud and repetitive. And it's like, this doesn't, like, there's no other scene in this movie that's written in the same way. But it's also like shot through this like veil, this curtained veil in the tub in the hot water, and shirtless men. Yeah, real subtle. Talking about vaginas and penises.
What kind?
The human kind. And what you do with them. There's just like kind of like the movie always kind of feels like long and drawn out during the rebellion stuff, because it's all very repetitive, and it's like, isn't this great? Oh, all these people are having families and children are being birthed, and now they're starving. I gotta think about those kids. And then we get the entr'acte, the break, the intermission. And then I asked the question, hey RJ, have you ever watched HBO's Rome? That show is awesome, and you have not watched it.
I've seen
that first episode.
I've seen King Arthur by Guy Ritchie. Is that anything like the political scenes?
I don't know. I just don't know.
Well,
So during all these scenes of like people off in the middle of the lands and like backlots and stuff like that, we get an old lady milking a goat, and she squirts that kid right in the eye, and she looks
sure does.
and she looks right at the camera, and
wink.
wink. I feel like that was not what Kubrick would have done.
I don't think so. But then there's also a little baby, and it's the fattest little baby you've ever seen, and it's pretty cute.
Yeah.
And I feel like Kubrick had some decency in his heart.
So here's where my notes are really not in this. Studs standing around in bathhouses.
Yeah.
Planning and plotting. Not the most dynamic of stuff, honestly. Kind of reminding me of Ben-Hur's down spots. And then we get the big Roman battle. The big where they shot in a big field in Spain. It brings me back to the memories of watching Alexander Nevsky, and just like kind of watching the shift of like 30s Soviet like battle scenes, and then watching we're now in like 1960 American battle scenes. We get those rolling fire logs, and what I describe as not the funnest of stunt work, as dudes like I'm pretty sure they have like pant leggings on. But like, man, those dudes are just like falling, like running full bore into these fucking burning logs. Like it's pretty nuts. And then we get the big kind of like rambling mash, and then things turn bad for the slaves. And then we get the big shot of the dead pile.
Yep. All those dead bodies.
Lots.
It reminded me of The Simpsons when they get the trampoline. And it's like it shows all the dead bodies, and it scans out, and it's like the entire city of just like hurt kids.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes, nice. And then we get the big moment. We get the I'm Spartacus moment, and that scene is still pretty fucking awesome.
You know what's weird? I always remembered it as I am Spartacus, not I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus.
And it was really like, I thought it was really off-putting for me for some reason, because I was like, I'm Spartacus. That doesn't have the weight and the gravitas that I am Spartacus.
No, people don't talk that way.
I would.
Yeah.
I am talking that way.
Yeah. And then we get the big drawn-out conclusion of miles and miles and miles of men being crucified. And it's like, what a beautiful image that is. We get the big heroic moment of Kirk Douglas killing his buddy Tony, so he doesn't get crucified himself, taking it on the chin, that big glorious cleft of a chin.
Ooh.
And but he's got a kid. We didn't win this one, kids, but slavery might have won this time. But hey, there's always the next generation, and 2,000 generations later.
We're still working on it.
Still work in progress.
Yeah.
Yep. So like I said, like, beginning of this movie is like really engaging. The end of this movie is really good. The I'm Spartacus thing is much parodied for a reason, because it's so great. Everyone knows what it is. And about selflessness and not giving up, not being a fucking snitch. That's great. It's called Snitchicus. I
don't think you would do it.
It's the prisoner's dilemma. You don't know what they're going to do in that other room, and they're going to rat you out. So you better rat out first. Get that deal.
If it was between you and me, I would give you up in a heartbeat, even if you were involved or not.
So RJ, we watched some other movies.
We certainly did.
So first, RJ, we both watched The Arena, a 1974 Italian exploitation movie that made the decision of like, hey, let's try to make like a sequel to Spartacus, but with sexy gladiator ladies. One of those being Pam Grier.
The ever sumptuous and seductive Pam Grier.
Yeah, the jug's on that.
You said it. You heard it here first. That's a hot take.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we watched The Arena, which is, as you said, the 70s female version of Spartacus. And I have to say, and I know people are probably going to get mad at me, and people are going to call me a weirdo and a nerd. I watched this movie in Italian without subtitles.
Yep.
It was not by choice. It was entirely because the version I was watching didn't have subtitles available. And at the point of the day, I had just watched Spartacus, and I was about to watch the other 3-hour epic we were just talking about. And I really needed a break. So this was actually a really nice little breather in between. But so I watched this movie in Italian. Yep. And I don't speak Italian. Mm-hmm. So I think I got the gist of it. There was a lot of rape. There was slaves.
Yes.
There was one scene. So if you mind, I would like to take the reins here for a minute.
Go for it.
And describe what this film is. So it starts off with a bunch of ladies in robes. It looks like a cult of some sort out in the forest, or like Wiccans or something.
British ladies, pagan ladies, out in England.
Pagan. It's okay. So it's close. Yeah. Wiccan and pagan. That's almost the same. So like, okay, I'll tell you what I thought this movie was about, and you can tell me if I was actually watching.
Because I actually watched it with an English dub, because I know how computers and the internet work.
Okay. That might be true, but we'll never know. So you get some pagans, and then they get assaulted by some Romans, and they all get scooped up. Then you see the women in the gladiatorial training camp.
They get sold first.
Yeah, they get sold in a scene where they're all about to be raped, but then the lady seller protects them. And then they get sold to the Gladiator Coliseum things, and they all work in the kitchen. But at one point, one lady doesn't like what the other lady is doing, and they have a cat fight in the kitchen. And someone throws a chicken at Pam Grier from off screen, and there's flour, and people are getting pies in the face. And one of the Roman dudes is like, "Hey man, you better come check this out. It's foxy. There's foxy ladies fighting each other." And they're like, "Ooh shit!" It gave them an idea. Yeah, it's foxy boxing, and they're like, "Ooh shit! You know what we should do? We should get these ladies being the gladiators." So they throw them out there. And Pam Grier is I'm guessing, child of the large black man from Spartacus who fights with his trident and the armor, because she sports that look now. None of these women wear bras. That was a note Jarrett said to me off screen. I just wanted to mention it because he's a pervert. They're fighting in the gladiatorials.
I believe I don't think I actually wrote that. I do believe I sent you a message saying the carpets don't match the drapes.
Yeah, and I was a little thrown off by that. I didn't really know what you meant. But I thought maybe it was a line in the movie, but we'll never know.
So innocent, RJ.
We'll never know. And then there's an uprising, and the women flee, and that's the end of the movie. There's another rape scene, though.
Oh, yeah.
And it's grisly.
Don't be a woman in an Italian exploitation movie.
In any
movie
form. You're just going to get raped, it seems.
Yeah.
Especially these Italian movies. Mm-hmm. But so that was my watching of this movie entirely in Italian that I don't know. That's it. What did you think of The Arena, the direct sequel to Spartacus?
Yeah, this spiritual sequel, at least. This movie is like, it's an Italian piece of sleaze. I didn't mind watching it at all. It was like always just like sometimes you can watch these, like every character's so broad. They have like the screechy gay man who always has to remind you that he's gay and he has no interest in these women, and he's always like, why would I be interested in that? Like, it's just that sort of thing. Really brings you back to a better time in filmmaking, apparently, some might say. I don't know. It's exactly what you expect. It's not a good movie, but it was entertaining. So I'd say it's worth a watch if you're, again, like I always, my caveat is if you're interested in like Italian exploitation movies, check this out. One thing I didn't really get a touch upon talking about Spartacus, and especially when talking about Ben-Hur, is that these movies were such big hits that it inspired like an entire like genre of films in Italy, the peplum genre, which is just sword and sandal movies, and they made like 160 of these things. They made probably not as many like as westerns. They made a lot of spaghetti westerns, but this was like came just before the western thing kicked off. And man, those movies, like those posters are so sweet. Mario Bava got in on the action. Those Hercules movies, and they're a lot more on the fantasy side, I'd say.
Yeah.
than like historicals, because like how many historical stories are there that you can tell about certain people when you're like, well, we can just make tons of stories up about like Hercules and Samson and et cetera, and fighting colossuses and whatnot. And I would have loved to get more into those, but I didn't have time.
Can I mention something really quick? I was looking at these Peplum movies as well.
Yeah.
And there is like a million fucking Samson and Delilah movies.
Yeah.
A million. Like, and I just noticed there is a new one that just got fucking released like this year. Why is there so many Samson movies?
Public domain, and people like the Bible.
But I mean, it's not like, I don't know, man. I've read some of the Bible. I don't feel like it's a huge story there. Yeah. But okay, Samson 2018, starring Rutger Hauer, Billy Zane.
It's at the movie mill.
What the like? Why? Who gives a shit about Samson?
I don't know, man.
Honestly,
well,
who cares?
Paul just came out.
Paul?
Yeah.
Oh, Apostle Paul?
Yeah. With Jim as Luke.
Jim Caviezel. Yeah, like why wouldn't he be Jesus again?
Why is Mel Gibson making another Jesus movie?
Because we want it. No, fans demand it.
No one demands it. Anyway, so yeah, the arena is there, and there's like all these other movies I would like to see. I had like because I wanted to watch Anthony Mann's epic that he made instead of Spartacus, which was El Cid, which is like a Spanish historical thing about the Moors, which like I'm like it sounds like it could be okay. I want to watch these big epic scale movies one day, but all these movies are always 3 hours long. It's like there's only so much time in the day. There's Fall of the Roman Empire. Going back, there's like Quo Vadis, which is another Anthony Mann co-directed movie with Anyway, there's so many of these movies, but man, sometimes you gotta focus, and you just gotta like, I don't know. It's not like these movies speak to my heart. It's just kind of like, these are neat, and they're fun to watch. They're afternoon viewing. You can do other things. It's like Westerns. But actually, I'd say the Westerns are like way better made, because they're way more lean, mean, lend themselves to better stories.
Lean, mean, and obscene?
Obscene sometimes. So Arena.
Yeah, it's a movie that's there.
Yeah.
Not much else to say.
Yep.
But you know what we do have a lot to say about?
Well, yeah. So RJ started.
Or are we there yet?
Well, we could talk about it. It doesn't matter what order we talk about it. RJ's like, hey, you're going to watch Gladiator? You're going to watch Gladiator?
Well, you talk about Gladiator first.
Yeah. So I was like, well, you know what? It fits into my need to like watch all the Best Picture movies and rewatch Best Pictures I haven't seen for a very long time. And one of those movies is Gladiator, because it is like just like it's in the ballpark. It fits along with these. It's a big time movie, and it's been a while since I'd seen it. I have like really specific memories about seeing this movie like on a matinee and loving it, thinking it was super awesome, and eating taco time afterwards.
You and your fucking taco time. I've had it up to here with you.
For whatever reason, I remember very specifically talking about Gladiator over some crisp meat burritos.
Crisp meat?
Crisp beef
burrito? Ugh, gross.
Oh, come on.
Okay, anyways, yeah. Tell me about Gladiator.
So Gladiator, I saw that you recently rewatched it, and I remember you talking about it on the show, and you were kind of like, it's not as good as I remember. You're talking about like some dodgy CGI and stuff like that, but I don't know what you're talking about, RJ. This movie is like, so for me, like I put this on my scale of like Best Picture winners, and this movie's like definitely in the upper echelons of those. It's like not in the top 10 or anything like that, but on the whole, there's like some great filmmaking. This is like maybe the last good Ridley Scott movie. Pretty sure it actually is. Russell Crowe is a movie star. He is like so awesome in this movie. There's a reason why it's kind of sad that he like never, I guess, lived up to expectations, because he's kind of in a weird place where he's like just Russell Crowe now, and it's like he's okay here and there, but he takes on a lot of movies where he's just a guy, and it could be anybody. But yeah, I kind of like forget that this was my introduction, I believe, to Joaquin Phoenix. Like I don't remember really him outside of this beforehand, and like he is such a good villain. I think because there's like it kind of makes sense what he's doing from his perspective of being this entitled rich kid who like has been raised to do whatever he wants, and when he's told, oh, by the way, you can't do that anymore, and it's like played really well. There's like large swaths in this movie that like I'm like, I don't remember this at all. Like I can't, like, it's in my mind, the whole opening sequence of like the big battle. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this. And then how we get from him winning the battle to being told that he was going to become emperor, to like, you're going to like take down the system and pass the power back to Senate, to the betrayal, to him like being like attempted executed, but it doesn't work out great. And then his family is like just crucified, and you're like, oh, that all happens like over the course of 45 minutes. In my mind, I'm like, it's like the first 20 minutes. So I'm like, oh yeah, this like takes a lot longer to play all out, which makes sense. That's a lot of things. I'm not sure why his family has to get killed. That seems just like that just is there. That's where it's like the like a revenge western essentially, and he gets waylaid. He gets found by because he's Spanish. He gets found by some slavers, and they just go, hola, this guy's passed out. Let's go enslave him. It's like, okay, and now he's gonna get trained by Oliver Reed, and we're gonna have some gladiatorial training, because that's what these movies all have. And then he's really good at killing folk.
How good? He's
the best.
Okay.
Yeah, and he just fucking kills people left and right. He winds up getting so good, and then Joaquin Phoenix, he wants to win the people over back in Rome, and so he brings back gladiatorial battles in the Colosseum, and everyone loves it because it's like Trump's America. There's like some real insightful dialogue about like playing the people for fools, and you just give them entertainment, they'll be happy. Real timely political dialogue there. And then we get like the whole thing of like a back and forth between Maximus and Emperor, and it's kind of like, man, you just fucking kill him. Oh, you can't do that. It's because it's a movie. It's like, whatever. Just like from a visual standpoint, the influence this movie has is ridiculous. How everything just like proceeded to rip off this movie, and like the stuff that Ridley Scott figured out to make this movie work. There is like kind of the ropey CGI in this movie, but I'd say that on the whole, it like look. I mean, it's fine. Like most TV shows looked about the same as this now, and this is 18 years later. So, the tiger scenes are like pretty like good. Like they're way better than the bear scene in Game of Thrones, which was like I was constantly thinking of Game of Thrones watching this, because like Game of Thrones essentially had the same realization that Peter Jackson had when he watched Braveheart, of like, hey, let's apply this sort of like aesthetic and storytelling to these fantasy stories, because people really like fantasy if it's told well, and it just took like 50 years for people to figure it out. Trying to think of other things. The score in this movie, that Hans Zimmer score, it's good. It's good.
It's good. He says
it's good.
Hey,
it's okay.
I gotta say, that song of where he's in the wheat fields is like the best shit ever. I love that thing where he's just like walking through the wheat in his like heaven place, and that music's playing. It's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Did you get to see this in theater?
I did.
Oh, cool.
I did actually. So, funny story. I believe this came up the same year as the Phantom Menace.
Year after.
A year after?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm thinking of a totally different movie.
Because that was 99 and this was 2000.
Okay, never mind. For some reason I thought it was playing at the same time. Doesn't matter. But I did see it in theaters as a little kid, and then my dad had I think it was a double pack VHS. I think it was like a 2 VHS pack. I watched that son of a bitch sometimes.
Yeah.
I believe.
The reason I asked about the theater thing is because like this movie I think is like so perfect for a theater. Like you know that like this movie was made to be seen on a theater screen. Like all those shots of like the way the Coliseum are filmed, like everyone's in full frame, like you see their whole body in relation to one another. Like it's like, yeah, this is like a super cinematic experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think this movie's really cool. It's like it's not faultless. It does have like quite a like it's got some problems. It's got some weird clunkiness that's like not perfect. But at the end of the movie, I'm just kind of like, yeah, no, I really like that movie. This is like, and then especially when you look over, like, I mean, again, on the continuity of like Best Picture winners, you go, yeah, no, this movie's definitely better than a lot of stuff.
So I did watch this like not even a year ago, so there is evidence of me watching it on this podcast. I think so for me, I remembered it being way bigger because I think it's like if it came out in 2000, I did see it in theaters. I think my brother probably took me, so I would have been 10. And I remember at the time I was just like, whoa. I was like, this is the craziest shit I ever seen. Yep. So I had this like, I think that's part of it. I was like, man, this movie's fucking huge. And I didn't watch it for 5 to 15 years, let's say. And I remember when I watched it last year, I was like, yeah, I still really like it. It's just, it's not as good as I had remembered it to be.
Right.
And I don't think the CGI was what I had a problem with. Maybe. There's that, someone could go back and listen to it and tell us. I think what it was is there's this thing, I don't like it in any movies. There's this thing in movies where they do like the slow down action bit where it's like action is going on and then it slows down, but it's like kind of choppy.
This is the movie that started, I think.
Yeah, like I don't like that.
I think, well, to think though, it's like kind of going back and watching like probably The Matrix and seeing bullet time, and then like watch Gladiator, which is like kind of going against that and like kind of trying to figure out how do you elicit. Actually, it's not this movie. It's also probably, I mean, it's been a while since I've seen it, but Saving Private Ryan, it does that kind of like over-cranked camera kind of effect where everything's kind of more, it's handheld, shaky, and there's lots of dirt being thrown around and desaturated and color corrected. This is the era of that. And at the time, this is exactly what, this was like groundbreaking visually, but now that it's been done to death, it's kind of weird to go back and go, oh, but this because this movie did it so well, it looks like it's like, oh, it's just looks like that now, but it's like, no, this movie like really figured those things out to make it look this way. So I get that, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm not going to fault this movie for it. It's going to be like the movies that are like still like in like 2010 shooting this sort of way, and you're like, right, or Zack Snyder,
movies today.
Zack Snyder, he was like taking it to a whole new level. QTEs, quick time events.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. So like, I hate that. I just don't think it looks good. Like, just play it at normal speed or like actual slow. But it's like, I don't know. You knew exactly what I was talking about, though. Hey.
Well, Ridley Scott gets worse with it too. Like, there's that movie of his, Tony Scott, his brother. He did that Domino. And fuck, I do not like Tony Scott. Like, he kind of like, he makes so many shitty decisions that Ridley Scott never made. But like, Ridley Scott is also probably one of the most like overrated directors like of all time. Like, sure, he made like 2 like all-time classics that like of all of the film canon. He made Alien, he made Blade Runner, but. And I guess even like I've never actually seen Thelma and Louise. That movie's probably pretty good, but man, he made a lot of shit. There's a lot of crap under his belt. And he doesn't get shit enough for that stuff. But anyway, he made Gladiator, and Gladiator is like a super solid movie. People love it. The violence in this movie is very greatly appreciated.
Yeah. Gladiator's good. I like Gladiator. I'm glad you rewatched it because I think the reason I wanted you to rewatch it again was because I rewatched it, and we have to do everything together. That's why you have to watch King Arthur.
Okay, so I watched Gladiator. That was a Best Picture winner rewatch. And
yes, it was.
And then it dawned upon, was like, what's another like action movie that's like, if you put it in this like timeline of like Alexander Nevsky goes to Spartacus, and then we jump ahead, and it's like, what? Before Gladiator, there was another Best Picture winner that was also a rewatch for Jarrett, and it also stars this guy named Mel Gibson. And I understand, RJ, that you're a fan of Mel Gibson, and this movie Braveheart, it had to be watched again. And for my convenience, it was on Netflix, and I understand you have several copies of Braveheart, and it's been a while since you watched it.
I own 2 copies of Braveheart on DVD, and I own a 3rd copy of Braveheart on the double VHS.
Right.
I own many copies of Braveheart. I haven't talked about my main man, Mel, the fallen son, for a while. I don't know how long, so new listeners might not be aware. I fucking love Mel Gibson. I think he is awesome. He is so charismatic. He's so cool. Yeah, he said some bad stuff. Yeah, he did some bad things. But there's way worse. Look at Matthew Broderick. He killed that fucking family. Nobody talks about that. I'm going to bring this up until people fucking know. Nobody talks about it. He killed a whole family or something, and he paid them off for like $800.
He's never said, and he's never apologized to the family.
He's never apologized. He's like, fuck it. They were Irish or something. He's like, I don't give a shit. So he's a way worse dude than Mel Gibson. Okay. Anyways, I'm glad he's coming back, and I feel like an idiot because I didn't realize when we were talking about Spartacus week, I was like, well, fuck. There's a Mel Gibson companion piece right there because we got to try to always get the companion pieces for Mel. So we watched Braveheart, man. I haven't seen Braveheart in many years, possibly 5 to 15. I can't be certain. I used to watch Braveheart a lot when I was younger. Not a lot, but I mean, like maybe once a year I would throw Braveheart on and I'd be like, yeah, I love this movie. I still love this movie. I think it's really good. I think there are certain problems of dating that there are certain elements that are a little bit dated, especially in, I don't want to say plotting, but in ways certain scenes unfold. It's like, wait a minute. In certain staging of the movie, you're kind of like, wait a minute.
I'm going to say that I don't think it's dated. I think that's very Mel Gibson.
Mel Gibson? Maybe.
Okay, so when I was watching this, I was really thinking about Hacksaw Ridge a lot.
Yeah.
Because of the way it's like, it's the exact same idea, and it's like got the same, like, best parts are like very, like the best parts are the same in both movies. And then the worst parts are the same in both movies. It's really, it's kind of like, oh yeah. I'm curious how Apocalypto holds up if I go back to that sometime.
You know what? I'm fine with that. If Mel Gibson keeps remaking the same movie over and over again, but in different genres of wartime, I'd be totally okay with that. Yeah. I still think that Vikings movie with him and Leo that we never got would have been fucking amazing. It would have been so good. The violence in that's one thing Mel Gibson everyone loves. That violence, man.
That's where he excels.
He excels, yeah. So we watched Braveheart, and I still think that this movie holds up quite a bit for me. But I am extremely biased, and I am super nostalgic for this thing. I forgot how I think that he actually does away with the romantic stuff pretty quickly. It's like 20 minutes, maybe half an hour.
Yeah, after she gets the attempted rape bit, and then he saves her, but then she just winds up getting her throat slit anyway for her troubles.
And you're like, nice.
And then no more ladies for William Wallace.
No, the rest of it is just blood freedom. And man's asses and freedom. Yeah. So I was like, oh shit. I was like, I didn't realize that got put away so fast in this movie. But there are certain scenes in this movie that I get all hot and bothered over, make me queasy. That freedom scene is pretty nice, I think. I think that scene in general is really well filmed. Like when he looks into the crowd and his lady's walking around. Maybe not well filmed is the right word. I think it's touching, I guess.
Uh-huh.
I really like that. The battle scenes, not the first one, but the second two big battle scenes are awesome. When there's like limbs getting cut off, there's like hammers going in the brains.
Disagree. So
you don't think those are good?
The first action scene is super frustrating because it is like it's so bloodless, and I'm like, I was you'd watched it before me, and then I watched it I think the next day, and I remember messaging being like, what the fuck is this? It's like that guy, like this leg just got cut off, and there's no like blood splurt, and I was like, what? This is brutal. This is like PG stuff. Like people are just getting maimed left and right, but there's like no squibs. There's nothing happening. Where's the Mel that I know and love? And then the subsequent battles afterwards double down. It seems like maybe the MPA like only watched the first hour and then went, yeah, it's good, it's fine. And then he was like, and he just packed it all in the back half that he knew no one would see. But yeah, those like two big battle scenes afterwards are
awesome.
Pretty good.
There's some really good stuff. There was one thing that when I was a little kid, it really bugged me. I don't like the scene when they spike all the horses.
Oh yeah.
Like the great battle plan. Because I always thought that when I was really little, like when I was like, because I watched this when I was maybe like 10 or I don't know. I was a little kid when I watched this. And I thought that really happened. Like I thought movies were real, I think. And like I thought they really killed those horses for the movie, and I was just like, man, that's sad. I was like, I don't like that part, so I'd always fast forward that part. But the rest of it, you know, when guys were showing their butts, getting arrows in their butts and stuff like that, I thought that was all cool. I think there are some really unintentionally hilarious parts, like
No kidding.
when like the leper in the tower, Robert the Bruce's dad.
Yeah.
There's a scene where like so on the record, I think Robert the Bruce is awesome. I don't know why. I just think every scene with that guy is really good. And I feel bad that that guy isn't in more stuff. But I did notice that this year there's going to be a movie called Robert the Bruce. And he will be in that movie. So that's pretty cool. Huh. So that's good to know that he really branched off from Braveheart. But I think that guy's awesome. I love all the scenes with him.
But there's I only know about him is that he feels like he like walked off of a Kevin Smith movie.
He might have.
Yeah.
He might have. I don't know. I honestly don't know what it is. I don't think he's like a great actor or anything. I just, all the scenes with him, I'm like, this guy rules. I like Robert the Bruce. But there's a scene where he like runs in the tower and he's like, Father! And he kicks the door open and it's just the leper guy. And he's just like standing there and it zooms in. And for some reason, it's like, how is this in this movie? I don't get it. And the other scene that I think is like, not even unintentionally hilarious, is just hilarious, is so when the English king is talking to like his gay son, and the guy, his son, his boyfriend is trying to give him like military advice, and he's like, who are you to tell me? He's like, I'm a master strategist. And he's like, oh really? And he like takes him like over the arm or over the shoulder. He's like, tell me about your great plan. And they're like walking. He's like, well, this is what I would do. And he's like, oh yeah, really interesting. And he gets to the window and he's like, ah! He just throws the fucking guy out the window. It's hilarious. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Oh man.
That could be in any movie, in any situation. It could be like a lady who like messed up a cake and another lady would be like, oh, you put the jam in the wrong spot? Oh, that's okay. Let's walk. Ah! And then throw you out a window. Like, it's hilarious. I love that. It's so funny.
Yeah.
You're not laughing.
No. That's so bro-y. That's a bro scene, dude. Because it's like awesome. Because because I remember when people talked about that movie, they talk about the arrow to the butt, and they talk about then they throw the queer out the window. That's like most people's relationship with that movie is they throw the queer out the window, and I go, of course, and that's like why because the guy's he's a weakling and he's bad because he's gay, and it's like Mel,
I think
he wasn't doing himself any favors back in 1995 either.
I think those people are looking too into it. It's like I said, if it was like two ladies, if it was like two ladies and they were talking about cake and one of the cake ladies threw the other lady out the window, I would still think it was hilarious.
But that would be a comedy. And then this movie's like a straight epic, so it's a very different thing. Because that would be like it's supposed to be farcical. Whereas that, it's like it is funny because Mel Gibson thinks it's funny, and it's why it's there. But at the same time, I'm like, oh yeah, the king just killed the guy, and like you could just kill anybody, and no one would give a crap. And because that's the way that things were back in like 1250, when you were the king, when you were Patrick McGowan, the prisoner, just doing whatever the fuck you want.
Classic.
So the funniest scene for me that I don't know is like unintentionally hilarious or supposed to be hilarious is the dream sequence.
Which one?
The one where like the one Scottish lord betrays William Wallace's cause. They like ride off, and he's like laying in bed in his gown, and he's like having a dream of William Wallace coming back to get him, and he's like, oh Jesus, oh no God, and he wakes up, what a dream, and then in comes actual Mel Gibson on a horse in this gigantic bedroom that he's in, that he sleeps right by the fucking doors, and you're like, mace. And he rides in with the mace, and he's just standing there. You're like, oh, is this another dream? Nope. He caves his head in, and his head like, and it just explodes. I laughed so much because it's like, what a fucked up scene. Like that is so weird, and that's so Mel.
And then he rides the horse off a fucking like window into a river.
Right. Yeah, it's fine. It's all good. It's like, wait, was that? It's like, was that a dream? No, that actually happened in this movie. It's such a strange thing. Okay,
I think Braveheart's awesome.
So this movie I slot into my vanity projects folder with like because I'm like, wait, this movie was directed, starring, and like Mel Gibson's ridiculous in this movie. His fucking Scottish accent is so like annoying. It's like it's always
He's trying his best.
It brings attention to itself. It's just like when he's in Hamlet with his dyed blonde hair and he's doing the Shakespeare thing. It's like he is just not this type of actor. And it's just like to him and like the William Wallace look. The like, oh, I'm just a poor Highlander. My father was killed, and oh, I'm just a bog trotter off the land, and oh, but it's like no, William Wallace wasn't. He was a fucking like learned lord who spoke Latin and spoke French because he was trained to. And so in the movie, we just get a scene where he does know that stuff too, and it comes out of nowhere, and you're like, what? You're surprised I don't know that? And you're like, well, yeah, because it goes completely against the character that's been established of just like a guy who's just like, oh, geez, I hope like one day I get to meet a girl and just get to live a regular life here in oppressed Scotland by the tyrannical English, and then suddenly, oh no, the English tried to rape my girl. Now I'm fired up. He's like such a like he's really distracting to watch.
You
this
love
movie.
Mel Gibson.
No, he doesn't have. I don't know, whatever. He's got that confidence and swagger that makes him who he is, but at the same time, he's very misguided in like how he should be in movies, and which is why he's like stepped away from. He's not in his movies anymore. So maybe he learned that lesson because when he probably watches this movie now and goes, "Boy, I look like a dork in this." Like the whole like the blue makeup shit and like him riding around. It's like if you look up the illustrations of William Wallace, he wore armor, he wore a helmet because he's not an idiot. He's not just like he was like the most important part of the thing. All he takes is one arrow in the head and he'd be dead, rather than like, oh, I don't care, I'm reckless, I'm a free spirit, now let's go watch a football game, oi. It's like, no, he's not. It's goofy stuff. It's like this movie is like legendary for its what do you want to call it, was it
historical inaccuracy?
There you go. It's known for that. It's real bad. Like none of it makes sense. Like the depictions of everybody make no sense. It's just because we got to make the bad guys bad and as bad as possible, and we have to make the good guys really good because they don't do anything wrong, and that's what it's going to be, and that's fine. I've never really liked this movie a lot. Like it's not. I don't dislike this movie. It's fine, but I just have never been crazy about it. Not in proportion to like how people love this movie. Like when this movie came out, like in '95. I mean, it was huge. It was this runaway movie. It won 10 Oscars. And like when this movie came out on tape, I remember seeing the standees. I remember seeing that fucking Mel Gibson standee at every video store, everywhere you went. That thing was there forever and ever and ever until Titanic came out, basically. So I get it. People really are into this movie. I just think it's okay. The violence is good, but I mean, like I said, I wasn't like it felt so much like Hacksaw Ridge in a lot of ways, where it's like really hokey, and it's kind of like earnest in a kind of a dorky way. And there's just these things where it's like this, like that scene of him and his girl walking, looking longingly at one another back and forth. There's like all this like unnecessary slow motion and stuff like that. I was just like, Mel, you're better than this.
You know what, Jarrett?
Yeah,
I think this is where the podcast ends.
Perfect. I mean, we've been going a long time here.
I don't mean the episode. I mean the podcast in general. Yeah. Because you didn't say any cruel words against my man Mel, but I don't like the attitude.
Yeah.
All right. So you heard it here first. We both agree Braveheart holds up. It is a certified classic, and everybody likes it.
Yep.
And Mel Gibson's a cool dude.
So RJ, who hates Spartacus?
Oh God, I don't know. Lay it on me.
Okay, let's run through these. Okay, half a star, Joe Krieger. This isn't a Stanley Kubrick movie. You can't convince me otherwise.
Come on.
Okay.
Come on.
Alun 1998, 1 star. Why is Kubrick so boring in all caps?
What?
Why is Kubrick so boring?
Come on.
Catherine Bollinger, 1.5 star. Ugh, I did not like this movie at all. Battle scenes and marching scenes were way too long, and the whole thing was just so American. If I'm going to watch a 200-minute epic, it better be culturally sound, or at least make a half-hearted effort. Everyone just sounded so American. Also found the score to be mediocre and uninspiring.
What?
Yeah.
Mediocre and uninspiring.
That's crazy that the American epic is American.
Silly.
Culturally sound. Bill Robinson, 2 stars. Last one here. This movie was made for someone other than me. The production of it is truly amazing. Thousands of extras marching in harmony. But this is a pure melodrama, and bad melodrama at that. Even if Olivier, Lawton, Ostinov, and Douglas, it's a bad melodrama. Trumbo script is above all boring. Just freaking boring. This thing is a slog and is unworthy of having Kubrick's name on it. The music is horrendous. Ugh. What a shit show.
I don't really understand like a lot of these people's problems. It's like, oh, it was boring. Oh, it was messy. It was, it's like, it's not for me.
That's fine. That's a fine thing, but it's like, I don't know. Movies aren't for me either, but.
Yeah, but you know what? You grow up, you be an adult, and you get over it, like me.
Suck it up.
Exactly.
You're the most mature person I know, RJ.
I've been told that by many people.
Well, I'm tired, and cookies aren't going to bake themselves. So let's end it right there.
All right.
After the break, RJ's going to do me the favor and kill me and get crucified because he's a good dude.
Did you know about that plan?
Well, you're the most mature person I know.
Well, let's get to it.
You got that baby on the way.